Everyone knows fasted walks burn fat. That part's not the secret. If you understand the actual mechanism, you'll realize that most people doing fasted walks are accidentally leaving 60 to 70% of the burn on the table. Not because they're walking wrong, because they don't know what's happening underneath. The difference isn't effort, it's not duration. It's one small thing that determines whether your body treats the walk as maintenance or as a reason to go after the stored fat it's been protecting for months. And the frustrating part, you're probably already doing fasted walks, which means you're already close. You're just missing the piece that turns close into results you can actually see. Let me tell you what's actually happening when you walk in a fasted state. And I mean actually, not the surface level version. Overnight, your body has been running on fumes. Insulin has dropped. Your liver glycogen has been partially drained, and your system has quietly shifted into a mode where fat becomes a more accessible fuel source. That's the window. When you step out the door for your morning walk, your body is already primed. Think of insulin like a fleet of delivery trucks. Normally, those trucks are running all day, picking up sugar from your blood and dropping it off at your cells. But overnight, most of those trucks have clocked out, and when the trucks aren't running, your body turns to fat for fuel instead. Here's where it gets interesting. Not all fat responds the same way. The fat in your arms, your legs, your face, subcutaneous fat, is relatively easy to access. Your body taps into it first, almost automatically. But belly fat, the deep, stubborn kind that sits around your organs and pushes against your waistline, that's visceral fat. And visceral fat is a completely different animal. It has more receptors for cortisol, which tells it to hold on. It has fewer receptors for the signals that tell fat cells to release their contents. Your body treats it like a reserve account it doesn't want to touch unless it absolutely has to. So when most people go for a fasted walk, they're burning fat, just not primarily belly fat. They're skimming the surface. The stubborn stuff is still locked. And here's the part nobody talks about. Reaching visceral fat requires a very specific signal, and the way most people do their fasted walk is accidentally blocking that signal the entire time without knowing it. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because the signal I'm talking about isn't triggered by working harder. It's triggered by something that feels almost too easy. Here's the mistake, and I need you to really sit with this for a second, because it's so counterintuitive that it hides in plain sight. The mistake is going too hard. I know, you're thinking, more intensity, more fat burned. That's the logic. Push harder, burn more, and in a lot of contexts, that logic holds. But not here, not in a fasted walk, not when belly fat is the target. When you walk at a pace that genuinely feels challenging, breathing heavier, heart rate climbing, feeling like you're working, your body shifts its fuel preference. It pulls more from carbohydrates, even in a fasted state. And the specific signal that mobilizes visceral fat, it gets suppressed. Not eliminated, just suppressed enough that the deep layer stays locked while your body burns whatever surface fuel it can access faster. Sound familiar? You've been waking up early, doing the fasted walk, feeling disciplined, and the belly isn't moving. This is probably why. The guys I see pushing hardest in their morning walks are the ones most frustrated with their results. Not because they're doing something catastrophically wrong, because they're doing something almost right, and that 1 degree of difference is costing them everything. Now, this next part is crucial because it explains why the slower walk works in a way that actually makes sense, instead of just feeling like an excuse to go easy. The biological window that unlocks visceral fat is driven by a specific signal, a hormone called norepinephrine. You've probably never heard this word in a fitness context. That's exactly the problem. Think of norepinephrine like a key, not a sledgehammer, a key. Visceral fat has a high concentration of the receptors that respond to it. When norepinephrine rises and stays elevated, not spiked, not crashed, but sustained, your body starts pulling from the deep reserve. The stubborn layer starts to open. Here's what generates that sustained response. Low intensity, steady state movement in a fasted state, for long enough that your body stops treating the walk as a temporary blip and starts adapting to it as a real metabolic signal. That's the layer most people never reach. Not because they walk too little, because they walk at too high an intensity, or they add something to their routine that quietly kills the norepinephrine signal before it ever builds. And that brings us to the one thing in your morning routine that's probably canceling everything else. Alright, here it is. The one specific thing that most people do during their fasted walk routine that quietly wipes out the norepinephrine signal and sends belly fat back into lockdown. It's caffeine. Specifically, the timing of caffeine. Now hold on, I'm not telling you to ditch coffee. I drink coffee. Caffeine has real fat mobilizing effects. The problem isn't caffeine itself. The problem is what caffeine does when it hits a body that's already flooded with morning cortisol. Here's what's happening. When you wake up, cortisol is naturally at its peak. That morning cortisol spike is actually useful. It gets you alert, it gets you moving. But cortisol also tells visceral fat to stay put. It directly competes with the norepinephrine signal you're trying to build. When you add caffeine on top of that cortisol peak, you amplify it. Your body is now sending two conflicting signals at once: burn fat and protect the belly reserve. And when signals conflict, your body defaults to the path of least resistance. It burns the surface stuff and leaves the deep layer alone. You know what that means? Every morning you walk fasted with a coffee in hand, you're essentially stepping on the gas and the brake at the same time. The walk is there, the fasted state is there, but the signal that should be reaching visceral fat is getting canceled before it builds. That small cup, with that specific timing, has been quietly undermining your results this whole time. The fix, by the way, isn't complicated, and that's what we're getting to right now. Let me give you the actual protocol, because knowing the mechanism is only half of it. You need to know exactly what to do tomorrow morning. Wake up, drink water, just water, cold if you can handle it. There's a real norepinephrine benefit from the cold stimulus. It supports hydration, and it doesn't spike cortisol the way caffeine does. It's not magic, it's just not working against you. Start your walk within 20 to 30 minutes of waking. Your cortisol is already elevated at this point, which works for you here, not against you, as long as you don't add caffeine on top of it. Let it do its job naturally. Walk at a pace you'd describe as easy but moving. You should be able to hold a conversation without losing your breath. Heart rate around 50 to 60% of your maximum, not higher. I know it feels too slow. It's not. This is the zone where norepinephrine climbs steadily without triggering a shift toward carbohydrate burning. Duration matters more than intensity here. 30 minutes is the floor. 45 to 60 is where the mechanism really opens up. The first 15 to 20 minutes are essentially your warm-up for the fat-burning system. The real mobilization starts after that. One more thing, and this sounds minor, but it's not. Skip the aggressive music during the walk. High arousal audio raises perceived effort, which nudges your heart rate up and shifts your fuel preference. Podcasts, audiobooks, silence. Anything that keeps your nervous system in a calm, sustained state. Save the hype playlist for the gym. After the walk, wait 15 to 30 minutes before your coffee or your first meal. This extends the mobilization window slightly and gives your body time to actually use the fatty acids it just released. Those acids don't stay in the bloodstream forever. If they don't get burned, they get restored. Give the process time to finish. That's it. No supplements, no hour-long sessions, no reinventing your entire life. Just the same walk, done in the right order, at the right intensity, with the right timing. I've got the full protocol written out in the pinned comment. Grab it, save it, use it tomorrow. And if you want to keep going deeper on this, subscribe. The next video picks up exactly where this one leaves off. Here's what I want you to take away from this. You weren't failing because you were lazy. You weren't failing because fasted walks don't work. You were failing because nobody explained to you what working actually looks like on a biological level. And one small detail in your morning routine was quietly blocking the whole mechanism. That's the Kong approach. Not more suffering, not a harder protocol. Understanding the tool well enough that you can use it with precision, and then put it down and live your life. The walk takes 45 minutes. You do it right. You come back, have your coffee, eat when it makes sense, and get on with your day. Fasting is freedom, not a cage. And right now, you just got one of the keys. Go test this tomorrow morning. Then come back and tell me what's different. This video is for informational purposes only. Always consult a healthcare professional before making changes to your diet or exercise routine.